going?
It started.
Thanks, Sonia. Well, welcome everyone. You are at the VTrans 2021 virtual contractor training, and we are glad you are. We're super excited to have you join us this afternoon. This is the second session that we're doing of this year's contractor training, and for obvious reasons, we're doing it virtually for the very first time. So as many of you know, we have been doing this annual training for years and years. And it's not only an opportunity for us to share with you some new information and new processes and procedures or new guidebooks that we've come up with. It's also always provided an opportunity for us and all of you to have a chance to network and catch up with each other. And we know that that's much harder to do in a virtual environment, but nonetheless, we've tried to design a training that is going to give you all a chance to get pretty engaged and share with each other. And my hat's off to the fabulous team I have. Sonia, Sue, and Karen have done all the heavy lifting to create a training that I think is going to be a lot of fun, very informative, and is going to hopefully meet all of your expectations and have you come away with some new ideas, some new best practices, etc. You don't need me to tell you that this has been a super challenging year. So in addition to covering a lot of the nuts and bolts of the labor compliance and contractor compliance responsibilities that come with the privilege of working on federally funded projects, we also want to have you share with us some of the different best practices that you've come up with for surviving and thriving during COVID. I have to say that we want to give a huge shout out to each and every one of our contractors, as well as to the rest of our agency and federal highway. Everybody that we know that's been working on Vermont construction projects has really, really risen to the challenge in so many different ways. And it shows, and it points out all of our resilience, but you've really outdone yourself. So we've been down this road before with other disasters like Irene or other things that have come up. We've survived certain dips in the economy that have impacted our construction program, but never before have we encountered anything like COVID and all the monkey wrenches it threw at us. And without missing a beat, and in spite of a slow start to the construction season, you all came through for us. You found ways to get it done, to meet all of your obligations, and to do so in a way that was really safe and met all of the protocols, even as they were changing as the situation changed. So you did this all because you really are pros at this, and it's all for the benefit of Vermonters and the people who use our roads. So we appreciate it, and we want to thank you for starters. Before we get going with our training, I wanted to turn the mic over for at least a few minutes to someone who I should say needs no introduction. This is somebody who has worked with us for many, many years. My supervisor, the Director of Finance and Administration, Wayne Gamble, and in his current role, he is also oversees our contract administration section. So he has a very vested interest in everything that we're covering here today, and he wanted a chance to say a few words. So Wayne.
Thank you, Lori.
Sure, thank you.
I was actually expecting you to be introducing somebody else with that intro when you said, with the comments that you made, but anyways, thank you very much. I do want to echo what Lori was saying. Without the contractors that we have here today and others, we wouldn't be able to get done the things that we need to get done. So I want to thank you very, very much for everything that you do. So again, as Lori said, my name is Wayne Gamble. I'm the Division Director for Finance and Administration here at the Agency of Transportation. I want to welcome you to this virtual contractors training today. The topics that we will be covering and they will be covering today, of course, are very important to keep all of our projects going smoothly and to meet all of our federal requirements for contractor and labor compliance. I also do want to say that I'm kind of sorry that we aren't able to do this in person because I really enjoy the in-person type trainings. It does make it really easy to network, and I know networking is extremely important But the good thing about these is hopefully you were able to have a little bit more people come to the training than maybe others would have been able to. So again, I want to thank you all for coming. I also want to remind you that Lori and her team in civil rights are here. They're always here, literally around the clock. And if there's anything you need for help or guidance, resources, please don't hesitate to reach out to them or myself. So again, thank you very much for coming.
Hey, thanks so much, Wayne, for a great welcome and kind words. And now that we know we're supposed to be on 24/7, we will make sure to do so. As Wayne said, we are here to help, and we really value all the relationships that we've established with all of you over the years. We hope that you will reach out to us early and often with any of your questions about contractor and labor compliance and anything that might come up related to civil rights responsibilities on your projects. We're also very, very fortunate to have with us today a representative from our Federal Highway Vermont Division office, Matt DiGiovanni. I wasn't sure, Matt, if you wanted a chance to say a few words now, or if you just wanted to chime in as we went through today's training. What's your pleasure?
Oh, putting him on the spot. I wasn't sure.
Sorry about that. No worries. No worries.
I will just say, I think it's great that you're having this training. I think it is actually a really good opportunity to have it virtually for more people to attend. I know everyone here does great work. Really appreciate all the work that the contracting community is doing. And but I think it's really critical to have this training and to ensure compliance for labor rights. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I'm here, and Larkin Wellborn, our construction engineer, is here to answer any questions.
Hey, thanks so much, Matt. We really appreciate it. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, and I know that you will chime in as we go through, and if any questions do come up that Federal Highway wants to add anything to. So before we actually get started, I wanted to make sure that if Teams is not a familiar platform to you, that you knew how to at least navigate the application so that you can be as engaged as possible. So most of you should have across, on my screen, it's across the top bar. It might be towards the bottom on yours, but there's a number of different icons. We're hoping that you're going to make good use of all of them. So on my screen, the first one is looks like two little people, and that's a participant list. If you click on that, you'll be able to see everybody else who's in the meeting or training today. So far, we have 23 people. We're expecting some more, and this will give you an idea of who's here. And the next icon over that looks sort of like a little cartoon caption box is the chat pod, and that's one of our big friends on virtual training, because it gives us a chance to communicate even as we're looking and talking about other things. You can write in any questions or comments that you have. We'll also be occasionally adding things to the chat pod that you can click on and access during the training or after. Next to that is a hand symbol that you can use if you want to speak up. And as soon as we see that your hand is raised, we'll try to call on you. And following that, there are other types of actions that you can take with those three little dots, but just quickly moving on. The next one is a camera, so you can have your camera on or off depending. We'll be taking a break about halfway through, and it's absolutely fine, even if you've had your camera on, to turn it off during the break. And then there's the infamous microphone. So we're going to ask that people stay muted unless they're talking. And with that, we can actually give you all a chance to introduce yourselves. Before we turn to all the participants, I wanted to turn to my team and give Sue and Sonia and Karen a chance to introduce themselves. So, Sue, you want to take it away?
Sure, thanks. So welcome, everybody. I too am excited. I'm excited that this is virtual because more people can be here, but I do acknowledge that I feel like interaction is more difficult. So I would really encourage the use of the chat pod and raising your hands, and because it's easier to engage when we have people doing that. So for me, I'm Sue Hackney. I have worked for the agency and civil rights for going on 18 years this summer. I am the agency's EEO officer. So if there are internal or external investigations, I would be involved with that. Some training. I'm also the ADA coordinator for the agency, as well as the Title VI coordinator. I do get involved with labor compliance, so I've been doing a lot of, well, mostly in the summer and fall, desk reviews, and I did get out onto some projects this summer doing site visits. Also, contractor compliance, when we're doing full-blown contractor compliance reviews, I've been involved with those. And I also do bits and pieces of the OJT program, which is actually makes me happy because it's one of my favorite programs. So that's me.
Hey, thanks, Sue. We're glad that's you, and very grateful that you've stepped in and helped out with the transitioning of the OJT program, since it's a program that you not only know and love, but that you actually invented probably some 20 years ago. So there you go. So Sonia, can you please introduce yourself? And then Karen after you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sonia Bover. I've been with the Agency of Transportation for 28.5 years, and most of it in civil rights. I do a lot of what Sue was mentioning, labor compliance, which is Davis-Bacon certified payrolls, contractor compliance reviews, and prompt pay compliance. I'm here if you need me. Always, I've worked with many of you, so feel free to reach out if I haven't talked to you before. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. So I hope you enjoy the training. And if you have any suggestions or feedback that you want to offer at the end, please include it in the evaluation that we will put up in the chat pod toward the end of the meeting. If you're not able to get it that way, we will include it in a follow-up email that's going to go out within the next several days to include the evaluation and other useful links that we thought you might find helpful. So thank you.
Hey, thanks, Sonia. And next we're going to be hearing from Karen Brulette. Hey, Karen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Brulette. I'm a Civil Rights Program Coordinator. I've been with the agency for 9 years now, and I've worked with some of you with the on-the-job training program. So I recognize some of these names. And I was able to go out on some of the sites, not last year, but the year before. So I was able to meet some people. But over Teams, I have met some of you. So I'm glad to see some of you today. So I do the on-the-job training program, the CDL training program, some of the workforce training programs, contractor compliance, site visits if I was able to, but more like desk reviews this year. So, and that's about it. So thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks a lot, Karen. And hopefully we'll all be getting a chance to see more of each other during the construction season in 2021.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to turn to some of the contractors who are here today, and I'm using the participant list on my screen, which tends to be sort of in alphabetical order. So the very first person I'm going to call on is actually Ben Dow, our friend from ECI. And Ben, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and I've just given away the company that you're from, but what your role is and how long you've been there. We used to ask things like, how far did you have to commute to come to the training, but probably seems kind of irrelevant these days. For many of us, it's walking across the hall. But anything else that you want to add? So Ben, welcome.
Boy, that last sentence that you just gave me is an open door. Can you hear me okay? You can hear me all right?
Just fine, yeah.
Okay. Good to see you all, and it's been too long. I'm Ben Dow, and I work with Engineers Construction. The short version is ECI, up in Williston. We're located in Williston, Vermont. I've been at ECI, I think, since August of 1988. So this will be my 33rd year. So that's kind of cool. A third of 100, right? In the course of being at ECI, I've done probably almost every job that we have, from laborer to driver to operator to foreman to superintendent. And I'm lucky enough to be the operations manager here. I more commonly refer to myself as the head coach. I also am the EEO officer, which I'm proud of and I enjoy. I do enjoy my work. From working in the field to doing what I do now, I rely a lot on my past experiences being on the other end of the table. I enjoy promoting and reinforcing our culture, and that's one of the things that I like to do, and also in using honor and respect as the guidelines of upholding our standards. So that's a kind of it in a nutshell. Some of you guys have worked with me before, and I really do enjoy this. So I won't take up any more time, but I'm looking forward to the training today.
Well, thank you, Ben. That's all music to our ears, as you know, and we're grateful also that you've agreed to serve on our contractor panel again this year. So we will be giving you a chance to share some more in a little while. So thank you again. Next up, we have Betsy Cochran. Hi, Betsy.
Hi, all. My name's Betsy Cochran, and I work with WJ Regal Rail Solutions, railroad construction contractor. We are located just south of Albany in a little town called Selkirk. And I don't know, I've been here for 2 years, and last year was my first year working with the certified payrolls. And I just want to shout out to Sonia and say how much she helped me and muddle through some of the do's and don'ts of the certified payrolls. So we're learning as we go, and last year was a great learning experience. So.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Betsy. Thank you for being here today and for all the kind words. So hopefully, and we're going to share even more about certified payrolls as the afternoon proceeds. So thanks again for being here. Next up, we have Brooke Bowdham. Brooke? Hi there.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
Okay, very good. So my name is Brooke Bottom. I work for DA Collins Construction. I have been with the company for 9 years now. I'm the contract administrator. I'm also the EEO officer, so I monitor the contract compliance on our jobs. Before that, I've been in this role for about 3 years now. Before that, I kind of worked as the estimating administrator. So I was on the compliance pre-award at bid time. So now transferred over to post-award. And DA Collins is located about 30 minutes north of Albany. So, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thanks for being here. We really welcome your participation. Okay, next up we have Kathy T. Hi, Kathy. You might still be muted, Kathy, if you're trying to share anything.
Kathy just wrote in the chat pod. Hi, I'm Kathy Truex from Fuller Sand and Gravel. Sorry, my office computer does not have audio on it, but I am happy to be here. Welcome, Kathy.
Excellent. Well, we're happy that you're here, Kathy. Even if we can't hear you, we know you're out there. This is like in true seance form, right? So, okay. Good to have you here, Kathy. And next up, we have Craig Weaver. Hi, Craig. Is Craig with Kathy, Sonia?
No. I don't see a comment from her, but could it be Donna from Weaver Construction? That's who I mostly deal with.
It could be if she snuck in and logged in on Craig's computer, but we'll
I don't
skip
know.
over Craig for
Okay.
now. We'll skip over Craig, and if Craig joins us again, we'll give him a chance to introduce himself. So next up we have Denise. Hi, Denise.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Denise Marcel. I am from Interactive Maintenance Services. We do business as IMS. We are a subcontractor that performs concrete, curb, and sidewalk generally installation. And my husband owns a company. I've worked for him for 15 years. And I'm excited to learn more about certified payroll because I think I've got a handle on it, but I know there's a lot more I could learn. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, awesome. We're glad you're here and you're in the right place. We will definitely be talking about certified payroll, so stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Next up, we have Jenny from Pike Industries. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Dodge Karen from Pike Industries. I'm the HR manager and EEO liaison for Vermont and New Hampshire. I've been with Pike Industries for 5.5 years now.
Wow. Well, we're glad that you're here today, Jenny, and I know that you're doing double duty with kids at home as well. So we really appreciate not only coming to participate in the training, but also serving on our contractor panel because you bring lots and lots of great ideas and expertise. So we'll be hearing from you soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you. And next up, we have Heather Whittier. Hi, Heather. Maybe we'll hear from Heather. Uh-oh. It looks like she may have left the training. So hopefully it wasn't because I called on her, but we'll move on. And if she rejoins us, then we'll give her a chance to introduce herself. So next up, we have Jennifer Powers. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, I am here from Casella Construction in Rutland. I started in payroll here, but I'm now working directly with the projects as administrator and coordinator.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. And we're glad that you could join us. And next up, we have Judy D. And I have to believe the D stands for DeRoche, does it?
That's me.
Hey, Judy.
Hi, I'm Judy DeRoche. I'm from J.A. McDonald in Linden Center, Vermont. And this is my 37th construction season working with all you folks. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Looking forward to it to be a good one.
Well, we hope we will not disappoint, Judy. So
yeah.
we enjoy having you join us every year. So I'm sure you're
you.
going to add to it today as well. Next up, we have Julie Chauvin from CCS. Hi, Julie.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay, this is Julie. I work for CCS Constructors. I'm the HR manager as well as the EEO officer. And this January was my 20th anniversary there. We work all over New England, but for Vermont AOT, we primarily perform bridge repair and replacement in the state.
Well, yeah, you do. So congratulations on your anniversary and thank you for being here today. Next up, we have, sure. Next up, we have Crystal Slate. Hi, Crystal.
Hello, this is Crystal. I'm with Tri-State. I have been with Tri-State. This summer will be my 4th year. I do all of our bidding and job administration. So I am excited to get some more knowledge on the contractor side. The submissions really are mainly what I'm dealing with at this point, as we're just newly becoming a GC for Vermont. So we have lots to learn.
Well, you came to the right place. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. So next up, we have Kylie Harris. Hi, Kylie. Kylie.
Kylie sent us a message. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry that I do not have a microphone, but I'm Kylie Harris and I work with Winterset Inc. I'm fresh out of college and a degree in business and accounting, so I've only been working here for a little over 6 months. That being said, I'm very excited to be taking part in my first EEO meeting. So welcome, Kylie.
Welcome indeed. Thank you, Kylie, for the message and welcome aboard. And next up, we have Pat Lawson from Capital Earth Moving. Hey, Pat. Did Pat write us a message too? Not
No,
yet?
I don't see a message yet from Pat.
Okay. Well, we'll wait and see, and if she's able to introduce herself later, we'll give her the chance to do so.
Okay.
Next up, we have Sarah Whalen. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Wallen. I'm with Engineers Construction also. On Thursday, I'll be here for 19 years.
Wow.
I am the accounting supervisor here, kind of in charge of a little bit of everything. And we just got a new software system 2 years ago that really took the guessing game out of our certified payroll and a lot of our mistakes. And I'd like to announce that I haven't had a lot of restitution payments from Sonia. It seemed like before there was a ton of them, but with our new software system, it's really helped us out a lot, as long as we have everything loaded correctly. But yeah, I'm looking forward to a great season this year.
Well, that's great, Sarah, and maybe it's something that you or Ben can share when Ben's on the contractor panel or during the last session that we were going to do as a breakout, but we're probably going to do as a large group, because one of the things that we're hoping is that people can share some of their best practices that they've found. So it sounds like you have come upon one that would be potentially useful for some of the other contractors. So that sounds great. Thank you.
Hey,
And
Lori.
yeah.
Sorry, Pat sent us a message. She doesn't have a mic. Good to be here. Started doing payroll affidavits in 1968. Always
Whoa.
ready to learn more. Thank you, Pat Lawson. So welcome, Pat.
Well, welcome, Pat, or welcome back, Pat. And I think you're giving Judy D a run for her money in terms of the number of years. And between the two of you, I think you have the rest of us beat, but thank you for being here. And even without a microphone, we hope you'll be able to contribute to the training today. Next up, we have Suzanne Olden from Kabricki. Hey, Suzanne.
Hi, this is Suzanne Olden from Kabricki Construction. I've worked here 22 years now, and I'm the corporate secretary, EEO, and DMWB officer for the company, and have been since 2011.
Wow. Well, that sounds great. And thank you also for your willingness to serve on the contractor panel in a little while. So Suzanne, I know last year it ended up that you weren't able to come to the training in person, and instead you called it in, and obviously you started a trend because now we're all doing that, right? So, okay, for all kinds of reasons. So thank you for being here today, Suzanne.
Thank you.
And we're in the home stretch here. Next one up we have is Trish Payan. Hi, Trish. Trish may also.
Trish has a message. I'm with Kathy and several others. Office computer with no mic. I'm Trish Payan with WorkSafe TCI in Barrie. I'm the director of finance for WorkSafe. I have worked with Sonia before with certified payroll, smiley face. Very thankful for all your help. This is my 6th construction season with WorkSafe. So
awesome.
welcome.
So thank you, Trish. Great message, and we're glad you're here. And thank you for all the kind words. And last but certainly not least, we have Larkin Wellborn, who's also joining us from the Vermont Office of or Division of Federal Highway Administration. Hey, Larkin.
Good afternoon, Lori and everyone else. I'm Larkin Wellborn. I am the construction materials engineer with the Vermont Division. I've been with Federal Highways about 20 years now, and I've been here in Vermont about 4. I was born and raised in Mississippi, where I spent most of my career, and finally found my way to Vermont, and I'm loving it. These winters are long, but you know, it makes the spring and the summer that much better. So loving life here, and glad I could participate with all of you today. It's good to see you.
Well, we're really grateful to have you here, and we'll welcome all of the comments and input from you and Matt as well over the course of the training. So without further ado, thank you all for the wonderful introductions. And now we have a few pieces of housekeeping and ground rules and some training goals to cover before we jump into our Mentimeter quiz. So I think this is something, it is you.
So I'm just going to quickly run through our agenda for the afternoon. After we go through a couple ground rules and training goals, we're going to launch into our fabulous, ever popular Mentimeter quiz. So people should have their phones at the ready because it's something that you do on a cell phone. And you'll notice the theme for this year's training and Mentimeter is back to basics. A lot of the slides that we're going to go through with the questions are based on issues that we found during our desk reviews and site visits this year. So we're going to do that for probably about 45 minutes. And after that, we are going to spend some time with our three contractors that have agreed to be on our contractor panel, and that will take us to a little bit of a break. We'll take like a 10-minute break, and then we'll bring everybody back for a group discussion. We've got some topics and questions that we want to kind of dive into, maybe, as Lori said, learn from each other, and maybe people will share some best practices and help others kind of, you know, with something you might be struggling with. So we have found this really beneficial in the past, and hopefully, I know, again, it's a little trickier virtually, but hopefully people won't be shy and will speak up and ask questions and that kind of thing. And we'll spend some time, probably about another 45 minutes or so. Then we'll do a quick wrap up, and we'll give you a link to an evaluation that would be wonderful if you could fill it out and submit it. It's all electronic. And we will wrap up the day by 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay, that goes to me. So just a few ground rules, and we don't have really many ground rules because everybody's at home. So just please, if you're on, your mic's on, please keep your cell phone off, and ask questions, be engaged, be polite and respectful to each other, and ask questions of each other. That's how everybody's going to learn, and we'll all learn together. Take care of your needs. If you need to get up, stretch, move around, just if you do leave your computer or whatnot like that, please make sure that you shut your camera off and that you're on mute. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, thanks for Karen and Sue. And I think, Sonia, you're going to take us through a few of our training goals.
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
So this year's theme is getting back to basics with a focus on Davis-Bacon compliance, prompt pay compliance, lessons learned during the 2020 construction season, and asking some of our most active contractors to share their experiences during COVID, tips on preventing harassment and how their EO office are making themselves known, and getting innovative with technology.
Well, that sounds great. So I think we can meet all of those goals, hopefully, over the course of the next few hours. And to kick things off and get it started, we get to have a Mentimeter quiz. So if any of you have not previously done this, be prepared. Some people are very, very cutthroat with this, but you'll be given an opportunity to show off your knowledge and skills. So Sue, take it away.
Bear with me a minute. I hit the wrong screen. I need to get back here. Okay. Am I sharing anything?
Not yet. Do you?
Okay. Well, I'm just a minute.
Okay, and if
Here we
you
go.
want, I'm happy
This should
to-
be it.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry about that, everybody. So go to menti.com, and the code that it's gonna ask you to type in a code. So it's this 1254718. And if you've never played this before, it's basically we have a question and you get time to answer each question. The faster you answer the question, the more points you get. It keeps track of kind of who's in the lead, and it's fun.
What's your access code again, please?
So it's 1254718.
Thank you.
Judy has a question.
Well, that was my question.
Oh.
Thank you, Lori. I was pushing every button I could to get the question in.
Oh.
Failed to load.
All right.
I'm not in, but.
You're not
okay.
in, Judy? Do you want us to wait a minute?
No, no, you go ahead.
Judy, did you go to menti.com?
Yes.
And there should be a place when you get there that lets you enter the access code at menti.com.
Yeah, I put that code in, and then now it says reload or join another quiz.
No, you don't want another quiz. It's not going to be as much fun as our quiz.
Failed to load player. You guys go ahead. I'll be fine.
Well,
right.
Okay.
Okay. All right, here we go, without Judy. What is Davis-Bacon? Best ever Dunkin' Donuts breakfast sandwich, a secret society that meets on Zoom, a prevailing wage rate law, or all of the above?
Uh-oh, they're going to be hard to,
Sonia?
Sonia, I think they're going to be hard to trick.
Hi, I'm sorry, I lost the PowerPoint, so I can't see the results anymore. But not the PowerPoint, but the screen that you had it on. But I can answer the question. So
They all thought that it was a Dunkin' Donuts breakfast sandwich, Sonia.
well, you know what? The next time you all go to Dunkin' Donuts, I dare you to ask the attendant
For the Davis-Bacon special.
But
so everybody got it right, Sonia.
Awesome.
Everybody, yes.
Right. So yeah, you all know it's a prevailing wage that's attached to each of the federal contracts that are in excess of $2,000. So good job.
Okay, and now we get to look at the leaderboard. If I can make it go. Okay, so Jennifer Powers seems to be in the lead and the fastest here.
So,
and then
which makes sense. If she was the fastest, she would be in the lead. But this looks like a really close race. So I think the leaderboard only shows us the top 10, but this is a close enough race that you could still get into it, even if you're not up there.
All right. Which of these should not be included on a certified payroll? Employees' gender, employees' social security number and address, employees' race and ethnicity, or employees' work classification?
So Sonia, can you see the screen yet or no? Maybe.
You have to unmute to talk. Just a reminder to everybody.
Thank you, Sonia.
So I can see it. I see it. Most of you got it right. So the employees social security numbers and addresses should not be on the payrolls when you submit them to VTrans. When you're, there you go, thank you, Sue. So before you send them or your subcontractor payrolls, you should make sure that that information is omitted from the payrolls. Also on the payrolls, you should be more specific. You can't list just an operator or equipment operator. It has to be specific to backhoe, loader, because we need to verify the wage that you're paying, meets the Davis-Bacon wage. So, what else did I have? This form that you're seeing there is the WH-347 form, which is the U.S. Department of Labor standard payroll form. It's not required that you use this form. You can use your own format as long as it includes the required information. And then there's a statement of compliance attached to page 2 of this form, and we're going to talk about that in the next slide.
So Sonia, the ones that voted for some other things, like that thought that you weren't allowed to put race or gender or ethnicity, you are actually allowed to put that, right?
Absolutely, and encouraged. Yeah, if you have that, if your payroll software allows you to add that information, absolutely you can put that. You can put that there.
So how do we think we're doing now?
Let's see, shall we? Oh, whoa. Had a little change, a little change at the top there.
I guess so. So it looks like me is fastest. That makes us all feel good, I guess, except there really is only one me. So, okay, we will identify who ends up being.
The statement of compliance should include a signature, have box A, B, or C checked, be attached to a payroll, or all of the above. Oh.
Good job. So all of the above was the correct answer. The statement of compliance is there for a purpose. It's there for you to certify the payrolls. Payrolls are the information is correct and true before you send it to us. You have to indicate on this statement of compliance how your fringe benefits are paid if you pay them. So you would check off box A if you pay fringe benefits like health insurance, dental, a retirement plan. So that would be box A. And then if you don't pay fringe benefits and you instead pay that amount in wages, you would check off box B, and then section C would be for exceptions. And at the last training, we had the question of who has to sign the form. Does it have to be the person on the payroll, or can it be a company official or owner? And I did some research, and it's either or that can sign that. So I think I covered all that.
Yeah, so did anybody have any other questions?
I just wanted to add, please make sure that when payrolls are submitted for prime or subcontractor, that this form is attached and that it's filled out properly. That's really important.
Sue?
Yes?
Judy was looking for the Mentimeter code again.
Oh dear.
Okay, I'll keep looking.
Yeah, I can't get to it right now.
Yep, okay.
I'm sorry, Karen.
I'll locate it and I'll put it in the chat pod.
Okay. I should have written it down and I forgot. All right. All right. And our leaderboard. Oh, we had a little shift in our leaderboard. And Matt was the fastest on that one. The poster board should go up before civil rights comes for a visit, the first week of the project, before any work is started, or before the project is complete. Okay, great. Good answers. So, due to the pandemic this year, we started sending our posters to contractors by email, and we feel like this has been going pretty well. So we send you the links to the posters, and you print them off. And they are emailed to the EEO officer and the person that the payroll person at your company. But if any of you would like them emailed to somebody else at the company, please let us know and we can do that. And in terms of the answer to this question, so probably before civil rights or even federal highway comes out to do a visit, those posters should be up, they should be looking good. We have a procedure in our office for both our site visits and our desk reviews that we will ask the resident engineer fairly early on in the project for a picture of the posters, so we have that on file. And so it's really important to get them up there before you start any work on the project. The first week of the project's too late. Obviously, during the project is too late. They need to be up before you start any work on the project.
Hey, Sue, I'm having no luck finding the Mentimeter number. Did anybody write it down?
No.
Did you?
I'll go into the site and I'll go into the site and look, okay?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll come back up or not. Okay, well, there's our current leaderboard.
And it looks like Crystal was the fastest on that one and is working her way up the leaderboard.
Okay. Staying with the theme of posters, what's wrong with this picture? I know it's kind of small probably, but nothing. The posters are worn, the wage rates are stapled together, or B and C. Okay, so I have another picture of this. Okay, so this is a picture of a poster board that appears to have been up for a while on a project. And the posters are worn. Yes, they're worn, and the wage rates are indeed stapled together. And I get that you might not have been able to see that from the picture, especially if you're looking at your phone. But indeed, that's what's going on here. So these they're flipped up. It looks like there's even mud on this poster board. There's posters that are flopped over, and what happened was the wage rates were stapled together and put into a sleeve, which isn't really what we want. We want those posters to be, the wage rates, I'm sorry, every page separately so that employees can see them easily. There's a poster here that's really not a poster. That's why there's an X on it. I think it was a walk-in applicant log. So this is kind of, what not to do. And then we have this. And this is really, it probably was early on in the project, but it's a very nice, neat poster board that Markowski did down on their Pittsburgh project. So whether or not you can tell, all the wage rates are, every page is separate. They have everything, organized, it's laminated, and it's very accessible and readable. So, thanks Markowski for that. And here is our leaderboard. I feel like the leader keeps changing, which is nice.
It has, but yeah, we're seeing some new folks in the top 10.
All right. So when should you submit an additional classification and wage rate request? When the classification is not on the wage rates, when a subcontractor needs one, as soon as possible, or all of the above?
Okay, well, most of you got it right. And sometimes the other instances happen if you stumble across one that you didn't realize you needed. So not necessarily everybody, the other folks weren't wrong. We do encourage that those requests be submitted as soon as possible because it does take about 30 days, or right now during COVID, it's taking longer to receive a response from the U.S. Department of Labor. So if you get your contract, you look at the wage rates and then you determine that you're missing, there's classifications missing, so get those forms submitted and sent to us as soon as possible. Prime is responsible for submitting for their subcontractors, so be sure to work with your subs on that. Like I said, it takes about 30 days to receive a response. We'll email you as soon as we hear. And we will actually email you the response along with a wage rate table that will show all requests that have been made for that project. And that's something that should be posted on the poster board with the wage rates. And reach out if you're stuck and you don't know what you should be paying, and I'll be happy to help you.
Thanks, Sonia. And did you say that they're supposed to, when they make the request, they're supposed to pay the wage rate that they requested?
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me, Sue. Yes. Until we receive a response, you should pay the rate requested. And if they come back with a higher amount determined, then we would work out the restitution that needed to be paid to the employees.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue.
Sure. And here's our leaderboard. Okay.
A little shift, but
yeah, not a lot, not a lot.
Sarah's hanging on to the lead, and that's right behind her.
All right. How often should you report subcontractor payments to the VTrans reporting site? Once a year, when you remember, by the 10th of each month, or every 2 months?
Wow.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. How come everybody knows it for the quiz, but not in real life?
Ooh, ouch.
No,
I think Lori was trying to send a message. Yeah. So
I didn't mean it in a mean way, but I think that's awesome that we were not able to trick anybody.
We weren't, no. So my philosophy is early and often. I mean, reporting by the 10th of the month is the requirement, but if you want to report them before then, that's great. Or as soon as you get or make a payment to a subcontractor, go on and report it. Payments, we do have, it is a web-based system, and most of you that are prime contractors have login information to that site, but if you don't, please reach out and we can assist you. Some projects like IDIQ don't use the online reporting site. Instead, it's the manual reporting form. The same rules apply, though. If there's a subcontractor on the project, they need to be paid by the 10th of each month, and you need to report it on that manual form and email it to our office, me. And I think that's it. Did I miss anything? Laura, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered it, Sonia. I mean, the most important thing is that everybody knows there's two aspects to the prompt pay reporting. One is that you have to make the payment from the prime to the sub within the 7 days after the prime receives payment for the work item that the sub has performed. And that's a much shorter date turnaround time than in most states. That's by Vermont state law. It's been in the books here in Vermont since 1991. And so for those of our primes that aren't used to working in Vermont and are used to other states, they're sometimes surprised by that. So we do require that turnaround time, which is pretty quick. But the reporting aspect of it is also important. It's not good enough to just pay your subs in a timely fashion. You really have to be reporting it, as Sonia says, at least once a month by the 10th day of the month for the preceding month. So thank you for being diligent about doing that, because it is something that is important documentation. It's something that we get tested on, and I know that our partners at Federal Highway are looking at that closely here in Vermont as well as the rest of the country.
Thank you, Lori, for adding that.
Thank you. All right. Okay, a little bit of a shift. Whose job is it to report payments made to subcontractors?
Oh, great. I think I ruined this.
Resident engineer, the prime contractor, the subcontractor, or Office of Civil Rights? Wow.
No worries, Lori. I mentioned it in my little speech too. So good job. You all got it right. Yay. It is the prime contractor's responsibility to report those payments.
Okay, giveaway. All right. Well, Sarah's still in the lead. All right. What are the most common issues found during a desk review? Lack of prompt pay reporting, late payroll, insufficient review of the EEO policy, or all of the above? Okay, good job. So it is all of the above. This season, with the pandemic, our office did focus more on desk reviews than going out onto sites and doing on-site site visits. Mine were about half and half, but definitely we changed our way a little bit about doing business. So a desk review versus a site visit. The desk review focuses, we email the resident engineer, we email the contractor's EEO officer and ask some questions, get some information. It focuses more on the role of the EEO officer, dissemination of EEO policy, those kinds of things, versus the site visit, going out on the site where we talk to employees in person and that kind of thing. And we're going to cover that later. But so when we do a desk review and we ask all our questions and compile our information, the end result can be, we have three sort of areas of compliance. You can be found, your project can be found satisfactory compliance, which is basically everything's pretty good. There might be a minor issue that you can, take care of. You might be missing a poster and we give you the poster and say, hang it up and send us a picture. Very minor kinds of things. The second category would be not in full compliance, and it happens, it's not that uncommon because as you will hear, and we keep sort of saying, we are monitoring prompt pay reporting, and that has been a pretty big issue in the last few years. And we are trying to we are ourselves running a little bit of a pilot project using a spreadsheet on a project to figure out who's there when, so we know what subs are on site when, because we're not out there. And it's working pretty well. So we know how to, what we're looking for when we're monitoring, your payments and your reporting of that. So not in full compliance is basically, we might find something like that, or your payroll's late. We'll give you, typically it's like 14 days to bring everything into compliance, and then we'll take a look. And certainly we've never been really into gotcha. We would rather help you. So certainly during that period of time, we're available. If you're not understanding what we're asking for, certainly we will help you with that. And then the third area is unsatisfactory compliance. And that's something that you really want to avoid if you can. We usually see that more with something that's pretty egregious or repeat findings. So if we came out last season and we cited you for late payroll submission, and we're out there again this season, or desk review, and we're shaking our heads going, they're doing it again, we're probably going to find you an unsatisfactory compliance, give you a period of time to fix it. But this is a more serious violation, and it can actually, it would depend, but it could actually impact your pre-qual status. So we really don't want to see that, and fortunately we don't see it very often. But so in terms of other issues, the late payroll submission has been a big one this season, I'd say last season, and we're looking at some of our monitoring of this and tightening up some of our procedures so we can do a better job of figuring out, if it's late. But that has been a fairly significant one. And then the insufficient review of your EEO policy, we're going to get into that a little bit later too, but that's reflected in the 1273, which is part of every contract. And there are some guidelines on how often you're supposed to be reviewing your EEO policy with employees. All right, so let's see. Not a whole lot of change there.
No, Crystal is the fastest. The top 10's kind of hanging on.
I know, it feels like it. When a trainee is having attitude or attendance problems, the best thing to do is talk to the trainee, call the OJT program manager, indicate on a weekly progress report, nothing. All workers have attitude and attendance problems, or A, B, and C.
Good job.
Great.
Yes, so this is a good weekly progress report, and the answer is A, B, and C. So you should talk to your trainee. So communication is key to talk to the trainee. You can call me. I'm Karen again, and I'm running the OJT program. Call me. Indicate it on the weekly progress report. So you'll see on this one that there's comments in here. Now, comments are key. This one's filled out, and that's really important because you can see if somebody's doing well or if they're not doing well, and if there's room for improvement. Yeah, so the other one was nothing. All workers have attitude and attendance problems. Please don't do that. Don't let it go. If there's a problem, we want to know about it and work with you to fix it. So, yep, so this one's a good one. It's signed. The trainee should get a copy of it. The hours are all in. Another reason why we like to get these weekly also is, let's say if the trainee is going to be out on vacation or it might be on some other hours that's not on this project here. And so the hours aren't showing up here. I might think that the trainee didn't show up. So that'll let me know that the trainee is showing up. And I think that's it. Sue, because Sue's helping me out with this too. So did I miss anything there?
Nothing's jumping out at me. I would just sort of, add on to what Karen's been saying is that, in a given season, she could have 10 or more trainees out there at the same time. And, we're not always out in the field. So this is a really good mechanism for communicating with our office. So we know how the trainee is doing. And yes, the comments are helpful, especially if the trainee put in 8 hours on, put in 8 hours on the progress report, but really worked more than that. A comment would be really good to have. The other thing I think, Karen, that I'm thinking about is we're going to start. We've been doing these both on Doc Express and via email. And I think we're going to try to get away from that this season, the email, and have the contractor submit them on Doc Express is where we're headed with these.
Yeah. So this is, this is an example of a very good one. And for the most part, the ones that I've received, everybody's doing a good job, and I do appreciate the comments. And like I said, they're very helpful to me. So what I try to touch base with my trainees to see how they're doing, and it's helpful for me to say, hey, they saying that I'm getting feedback.
Oh, let me.
Here we go. It's just helpful for me to say, like whatever the comments on here, they're saying that you're doing a really good job. It's just nice for them to hear that on their end too. So please fill out the comments. Thanks.
All right. Let's take a look, shall we? Okay.
Sarah's hanging on.
Yes, she is. The company EEO policy should be reviewed with managers, supervisors, and hiring staff annually, during employee orientation, every 6 months, or B and C. Okay, great. Well, most of you did get this right. And this is where I said we'd talk a little bit more about dissemination of your EEO policy. So a lot of companies have an all-employee annual meeting, and the EEO policy will be discussed. Sometimes, typically you take attendance, and maybe sometimes employees sign off. But according to the contract requirements, when you're dealing with hiring staff and managers and supervisors, they are supposed to hear this every 6 months. So during the, obviously for everybody, during the employee orientation is a key time, but for this group of people, every 6 months is required. And I think sometimes that we find that sometimes there's some confusion about that, or it's just the message isn't getting out. So we really did want to include this in our slides. And, it doesn't have to always be formal kind of training. It can be, it can be doing it by tailgate talks. It can be, doing it in different formats. But the key is, that this group of individuals, because they are, more closely working with staff and hiring, they need to hear about it more often than all employees. And the other thing that should happen is when you do your every 6 month review, you should document and have take attendance, because that's something that we're going to look at if we do a full-blown contractor compliance review on your company. So we'll be looking for that kind of documentation. And here's our leaderboard. Okay. Why should the company EEO officer visit job sites? So employees know who the EEO officer is, to discuss a complaint, to conduct a toolbox talk, or all of the above. Good job. So yes, all of the above. So we know that a lot of our contractor EEO officers, just like myself, wear a lot of hats. And it's not always easy. It depends on what your role is, but it's not always easy to be out there in the field. The EEO officers who we find are out there are also our safety officers for the company. And that's great because they're out there a lot. They get to know the employees. What we don't always find, though, is that the employees also think of them as the company EEO officer. So I would encourage any of you, if there are any of you here that are also your safety officers, to at least once in a while, when you're out there, switch hats and be the EEO officer, and maybe do a quick tailgate talk or have a conversation, and just kind of make sure they know you're the company EEO officer. We do ask employees this question when we go out on sites, and the answers really can vary. But so it's good for them to know that they have somebody else beside, what we hear, or what I've heard sometimes is, well, if somebody has a complaint, they're going to go to their supervisor. And while that is probably true most of the time, if they're going to complain about their supervisor, they don't want to go to their supervisor to make that complaint. So they need to know there's somebody else within the company. There's also always a VTrans resident engineer out there that they can go to. My information is on one of the posters as the agency EEO officer. So they have a number of avenues that they can use if they need to. And we think that's really important to them. The other thing is that if you're maybe proactive about this, you're not going to be going out there to discuss a complaint, hopefully. So. And we would encourage, what I forgot to say was, we would encourage those of you who are EEO officers but spend more time in the office because your other duties are more in the office. I would really, really encourage you to try to get out to your projects at least once a season, just so the employees, do an impromptu, talk with them, or have a conversation, just so they know, they can put a name to a face, know that you're an EEO officer for the company. I know too that some of you are probably really small companies, and so the employees, and it may not be an issue, but it does run the gamut, we find. And so anyways, and here is our leaderboard.
And it looks like several people have been losing their connection with Mentimeter, which isn't good.
Oh, no.
Ann and Brooke. So we're sorry about that.
Oh, I should have written down
on Friday. But it's given Dr. Centipede a chance to move on up.
Oh. All right. All right, payroll needs to be submitted to VTrans. Monthly, when the resident engineer asks for it, weekly, or when you get around to it.
Wow, great job, everybody. This is what I like to see. That is the correct answer. It should be submitted weekly for the preceding week. And the prime contractor is responsible for ensuring that their subcontractors' payroll are submitted timely as well. I know that sometimes can be the biggest pain point, is you folks don't always necessarily know what sub's been on site what day and when the payroll should be coming in. We're going to actually touch on that a little bit later on some systems that maybe some of you have developed for keeping track of that. But just make sure that your subs are aware there is a time frame and they need to get them to you ASAP. And so you can send them to us. So good job.
Okay. All right, there it is. How often should employees be paid? Bi-weekly, when they ask for a paycheck, weekly, or monthly?
Wow, again, you all are doing great. This is awesome. It is weekly. It's very clear. Employees must be paid weekly. You need to make sure that your subcontractors are aware of this, especially if you have a sub that's not worked on a Vermont project, a VTrans federally funded project, to be more clear. And make sure that they're aware of it, because sometimes some companies don't know that. So yeah, good job again.
All right. Sarah's hanging in there.
Yeah, but Matt is getting awfully close.
Where should your posters be located on site? On an outside bulletin board, inside a porta potty, in the supervisor's truck?
Yeah, so everybody got this one right too. So the poster boards most definitely should be on an outside bulletin board, not inside the porta potty. They should be on display them on your job site, including your wage rates. And as it was mentioned earlier, not stapled together. And if there's different counties, you will need your wage rates for each county. And make sure they're in a place so each employee can see them easily. And if your project, if your project does not have a job office due to the nature of the job work or the length of your contract, posters must be displayed at the home office, and each employee must provide copies of the notices and posters and sign something saying that they have seen those.
Karen's absolutely right. So in the old days, it wasn't uncommon on some of the mobile projects that were statewide marking or striping or things like that, that there would just be a sort of quasi poster board that would be thrown in the back of one of the trucks and ride around with the project. And that's not permissible. And so that's not just according to us, it's according to federal highway. So as Karen said, if you've got one of those projects where it's never that the project is not got one particular site, but is always moving around, make sure that you've posted all of the posters at the home office and that every one of the employees working on the project has been given a full set and has signed for it. So that way, when we do get checked on that, that we'll know that that requirement is being met. So how did they do, Sue?
Let's see, shall we? Oh. Okay, Sarah's hanging on. Matt's close behind. What are the most common issues found during an in-person site visit? Poster board issues, employees don't know who the EEO officer is, late payroll, or all of the above? Okay, great. So yes, the answer is all of the above. Doesn't mean that the employees who don't know who the EEO officer is incorrect, because it is, but I know you've heard a lot about payroll being late and employees not knowing who the EEO officer is. But when we go out on a site visit, like I said, we focus more on, we talk to the resident engineer, we talk to the project super, we check the posters, but we really want to talk to the employees. So we'll try to talk to any women or minorities that are on the site. We'll try to talk to employees of the prime, employees of any subs who are there that day, to kind of get, the big picture. We ask them a lot of questions about, did they know who their EEO officer is? When's the last time they might have heard about their EEO policy? We ask them about their wages. We ask them about what they're doing, their work classification, basically, if they work in different classifications, so that we can verify some of that when we get the payroll. And so it's really important that, not only the things that we've talked about, but the poster board issues. That doesn't just mean that you might be missing a poster out there, or your posters might need, replacing. It also, we ask employees if they know where the posters are. And lots of times the employees, especially of the prime, they're going to know. But what we hear sometimes is the subcontractor employees don't know where the poster board is. And I know that it can get tricky. I know that sometimes a sub is there for a day, gone for 2 weeks, back for a day. I might show up on that first day that the employee's there. But what we would encourage you is to figure out, who is responsible for letting the subcontractor employees know where that poster board is, and making sure there's some communication going on there. And then, so again, I don't expect that every employee is going to go seek out the poster board and memorize it, but we feel like, there's EEO officer information on there, and there's wage rate information on there. And if they want to figure out if they're being paid appropriately and we're not there, they should be able to do that by looking at the posters. So it's pretty important, but it seems like it's a little bit tricky sometimes to figure that out, to have that happen. And we're open to suggestions and best practices as we move through this training. If people have some ideas, that'd be great. Okay, and here's our leaderboard again. All right, last one. Which two of these people don't work in civil rights? Sonia and Sue, Beth and Bernie, or Lori and Karen?
I was thinking it would be unfortunate if Sarah lost her lead over this one.
Well, well, Beth and Bernie don't work in civil rights. So our fabulous coworker, Beth Meyer-Eric, had the nerve to take a job with Department of Labor last fall. And so we are currently recruiting to fill a position in civil rights. And as you heard, Karen has taken over the role of managing the OJT program. So we're thankful for that. And while we miss Beth and certainly Bernie, you know what I can say about Bernie, but All right.
So how did they do?
We have a final leaderboard. Oh, look at that.
Go Sarah.
Go Sarah. With the
Sarah did
confetti.
extraordinary. Well, she jumped into the lead early on and she hung on to it. Usually we see a lot more flip-flopping around, but she was not giving up on this in spite of everybody else's efforts. So great job. And
yes,
our
thank you.
condolences particularly to Ben and Brooke and Pat, who got kicked out of Mentimeter, because who knows how you might have turned out, right? Or Judy and I, who never got in there in the first place. So you've all been great sports though, and I'm impressed with how many right answers. And I'm just curious about that one person who thought that Sue and Sonia were just here today out of the goodness of their hearts, but that's okay. So I'm wondering, Sue, since it's almost 2:30, if we should take a short break now before the contractor panel?
Yeah, that would be a good idea. That'd be great.
Well, why don't we go ahead? I think it's 2:27 right now. So how about if we said folks would come back at 2:35? That would be about 8 minutes. That sounds like a good amount of time. When we get back, we have a great contractor panel with Ben and Jenny and Suzanne. And then we're going to have a general discussion on all kinds of topics. So, so go ahead, take a break. If you want, you can turn your camera off or not. And we'll see you all back here at 2:38. 2:30, I'm sorry, at 2:35. Thanks. It looks like most folks are back, so maybe we can get started with the contractor panel.
I got a new name.
You did.
I see that, Ben.
Isn't that what we do when we get tired?
Oh,
that's pretty funny.
Oh dear.
Is some kind of roast or something going on?
I like it. So I don't think any of us are going to confess to who stuck that in there, but it's pretty funny. But you still know who you are, and we all know who you are.
Yeah, I know.
So,
Sarah already razzed me. She sent me an email.
Well, without further ado, I think Sue's going to take it away with our contractor panel. And how she introduces you, I have no idea.
Okay, thank you. So I am getting some background noise. Not sure why, but so moving into our contractor panel, we are fortunate to have 3 individuals who have been in the industry for a while, and I am probably not going to try to introduce all 3 of them. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I did want to just say to everybody that this is a time, if you know, again, if we're talking about something and you want to share a story or ask a question, don't be shy. Certainly feel free to jump in, because you guys are doing the work and facing the same issues and dealing with the same issues, and so it's a really good time to kind of learn from each other. That said, I am going to so I am going to let the panel introduce themselves. And Ben, I'm not going to give you a different name, but so can you start us off? Oh, you're on mute, Ben.
There we go. I'm Ben Dow from Engineers Construction, and I've agreed to be a part of the panel today, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Ben. And do I have Suzanne here?
Yep, this is Suzanne Olden from Kabricki Construction.
And last but not least, Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny with Pike Industries. What else are we supposed to say? Anything? Suzanne, I think we were on this team together last year.
I think so.
Okay, well, I really appreciate the fact that you're all back here doing this, because I know Ben was also a panel participant last year. So, and I will say in advance that I've kind of switched the questions around. So I know I sent you all the questions. I'm not changing them necessarily, just maybe the order a little bit. So the first thing I wanted to ask, and I guess Suzanne, I'll start with you. It's about how your company may or may not, how much success you've had incorporating topics. I know we keep saying this, the importance of having, toolbox talks, tailgate talks, but incorporating topics in them that are not always, lots of times they're safety. And I get that that's important. It's very important, but we also, from time to time, it's good to incorporate other subjects. And so we're thinking, EEO, sexual harassment, maybe civility in the workplace, but also our last this year had a few different issues that they needed to talk about on their sites, and one was all of the political views that during this election season were pretty significant, strong views, and also reactions to having to wear masks. And I wondered if, Kabricki has been successful in incorporating some of these important topics out on the sites, out in the field, and how you may have done that.
Relating to, you had cut out, Sue, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Am I
So
supposed
relating
be-
to doing like toolbox talks out on your projects and incorporating things, it's a common, it's daily, safety talks, and that's, like I said, that's important, but incorporating other subjects, EEO, sexual harassment, and I said that this year we had thrown into the mix, dealing with, views about wearing masks, maybe political views, and talk going on projects. And I just wondered how, if Kabricki is successful at incorporating, working those topics into their tailgate talks out in the field, and how you've done that.
We, in our like 5-minute huddles, we've included like proper PPE as we go forward with the COVID. So like using masks and gaiters and that types of stuff, and social distancing. As far as our EEO training, other than on-site, we do it via DocuSign nowadays, as well as trainings in-house that we didn't have a problem with last year because it was before COVID, but like this year we're going to do it in smaller training groups in larger spaces. So that's how we work in COVID and what's going on in the world right now.
Okay, thank you. How about ECI, Ben? Were you successful, working these topics into, out on your projects, or even in other ways?
Yeah, we were very successful. I think we were pretty much set up for it in the beginning of COVID because we had already set ourselves up to be virtual in our weekly meetings for those who weren't present. And a lot of our out-of-town crews could join in. So we switched our weekly meeting over to totally virtual, and it has been so. It's a company-wide meeting every Friday. So every Friday, several of us talk to the entire ECI crew, 180 in the summer, and we do incorporate those different topics into that Friday morning meeting. It's usually about a half an hour long. And the other thing we did this year, it's probably answering another question too, but we actually rewrote our anti-harassment policy, and we actually did a 4-part company-wide anti-harassment training where we had an external person come in and help us with it. And we incorporated that with our code of conduct and our other company things so everyone could relate. We had a lot of participation. And we did that along with all of the COVID statewide dashboard review. Every week we talked about COVID. Every week we talked about masks. In order to be successful, we had to make it a part of the culture, and we had to just deal with it every single week. Whenever something changed with COVID, we also incorporated another weekly check-in meeting that we're still doing 2 times a week with all the managers and leaders to check in on how the employees are doing, if we have any illnesses or things we have to deal with, if there's any more restrictions or less restrictions. We do that twice a week on a weekly basis, all the managers. So a lot of it revolves around virtual communication, and it's actually created a situation where we're actually more in touch with our employees than we used to be. So
great, that all sounds great. And I think what you said was you had already been going virtual before the pandemic, I believe. We talked about this before. Yeah, yep. Yeah, which made it hopefully that much easier to just continue that way. Yeah, great. And how about you, Jenny and Pike? Oh.
Yeah, so as far as incorporating EEO into toolbox talks and anti-harassment, we went virtual, obviously, with all of our spring meetings this year. We made it through our main spring meeting at the first week in March of 2020. And then very quickly, everything changed, right? The whole landscape. So thankfully, we had done a new video for EEO, anti-harassment and anti-discrimination. And we ended up getting our producer to put it into a Vimeo link, and we sent it out, and we incorporated that into a toolbox talk to get all our mandatory trainings done that way in the field, obviously with support. Now, as far as, incorporating it into regular discussions, we did have some issues this year. I think that you are well aware of on the civil rights side. And a lot of it stemmed around conversations around, flags, conversations around the BLM movement and those types of things. And just the different perceptions from people in the field and how they perceived those differences in opinions. And so we did have some kind of course correcting throughout the course of the season that we had to do. And again, we took those lessons and kind of incorporated them into toolbox talks. I would say not necessarily company-wide, but another thing we also did was we also sent out, when the BLM movement really came to light, we sent out some reminders about our social media policy and communications policies, because we started to receive complaints about employees that were on their Facebook page and associating with us, those types of things. So we, did constant reminders via toolbox talks on those as well.
Great, thank you. Lori, did you have a question? I thought your hand was up at one point.
It was, thanks, Sue, but I didn't want to leave it up because then you had called on Jenny.
Sorry.
I was just curious when Ben was talking about how much they've moved into the virtual space to maintain communications with their entire workforce. Are most of the employees connecting by cell phone, or how is that happening? Since out in the field, very few people on a job site are necessarily in front of a computer or even a tablet. So are the communications and the platforms that are being used something that people can easily access on their phones? Just curious.
Yes. First of all, every crew leader has a smartphone. Every crew leader has a smartphone. And actually, probably every employee of ours, unless they're over 60, has a smartphone as well. When we do our weekly meetings, every single employee has submitted their own personal email. Even if they don't have a company account, some of the young laborers, they will actually sign on. They're all signed up, and they all log into what's called GoTo Training. And the GoTo Training platform works for us well because it can track like when we did the anti-harassment training, it produces a log of who was there for how many minutes, who was logged in. So we actually have trained our full force through that platform. Also, on top of the smartphones and the personal emails for the few people that don't have a company account, most all of our employees all have a company account, and all of the supervisors, anyone that's got anybody working for them has a tablet. We have tablets. We pushed them out company-wide. They all have cellular data connections. So wherever these guys are, as long as they can get a cellular data connection, they also can tune in. to our different various meetings, which we use Teams pretty much exclusively for all the communications with the project managers and the foremen. So Teams is a big part of it. And the participation is really good. We also do all of our time, all of our reporting, all of our job site reporting for our time cards. It's all done on the tablets and the smartphones. You can also use a laptop. And most of our foremen also have a third device. Most of them also have a laptop computer. And most of those guys that are out there with several people have a hotspot as well. So we've got many options. And we've actually found an increase in getting guys to work and getting them working since COVID, because they don't all show up at the shop anymore, because we eliminated having people come to in person to the shop, and we have them go to the job site. And that's been a huge success to get people working. So when they're on the job at 7 o'clock, they're on the job at 7 o'clock. Their time isn't reported. They get a phone call and they grab their smart device and get their time put in. And further from that, all the office employees, including Sarah, have laptops, and we have a virtual private network where all of our office work can be done remotely at home. So that's a long answer to a little question, but there's a lot to unpack there.
Well, thank you. That's a great answer to the question. And it sounds like ECI is making wonderful use of technology to keep everybody connected, to keep everybody safe during COVID, and to actually kind of modernize your workforce at warp speed in terms of some of the pain points that we struggle with out in the field sometimes. So I suspect, Ben, that some of the other contractors might want to be getting in touch with you to discuss some of this, and hopefully you're the right person to talk to. So thank you. That's great. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lori, for the question. So Jenny kind of already answered one of the questions, but I'm going to throw it out to both Suzanne and Ben. And you don't have to share if you don't want to, but it's about if there were any sort of quote unquote uncomfortable moments on any of your projects this season, that we don't need particulars, but that you may have taken some, it may have become a teachable moment. Is there anything that jumps out? I mean, I know there was so much to deal with COVID, like I said, an election and just emotions running high, and Black Lives Matter, and you name it, it was here this year. And I just wondered if either of you had anything that you wanted to share about that.
I have something, if you want me to start.
Go ahead, Ben.
Okay. Well, one of the things that we realized this year, and that I realized, and it's a good takeaway, is the huge opportunity that you have when a problem does happen. And previous to all this stuff that we're all talking about, a problem would arise and everyone was just, oh my gosh, look what's happened. Look what we have to deal with now. How can these guys be doing this? How do we get in this situation? And we used to be devastated by the fact that we got a problem. And we had a lot of them this year with all those things that you guys that you guys are just talking about. But when the leaders realize the opportunity that you have to change behaviors when problems arise, we realized this year, and we talked about it on our senior management team, is when these problems happen, it provides that time when people will actually change. Things in your life don't change when you get a suggestion. Things change when things get hard and they get unbearable and you lose sleep overnight. And so I actually have gotten to the point over this past year in COVID that I'll share with you, is that when things happen, my ears perk up and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I'm glad I'm here today. There's another issue that just came up, and we have the opportunity to solve something with someone that just presented itself, because these things don't happen by accident. It's the culture, and it's an indication of the culture when you have a problem or an issue. So the opportunity is embracing the problem, figuring out what the root cause of it is, and then dealing with it appropriately with honor and respect, and then you get a good result. So I think it's been good for us this year to have to go through some struggles. That's what I have.
Suzanne?
Yeah, as for me, we had an HR manager start in October. So any of those type of issues have been going to him, so I haven't seen anything. I'm not saying we didn't have any. I'm saying I haven't seen any, so I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I like your answer. So, we've talked about dealing with a lot of things. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. And I know that, Ben, you touched on this already to some extent. There may be other things, but examples, I'm looking kind of for examples of how you kept your crews safe. And Ben, I'm thinking about, the fact that they don't come they go right to the work site now, and things like that, like concrete kind of examples. Jenny, do you have anything that Pike did that comes to mind for you?
As far as things that we did to keep employees safe and still productive?
And yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, all of this same things that probably everybody on the phone did, mass confusion and ordering supplies and bulk supplies, and a whole host of people relabel, mixing disinfectants and labeling disinfectants and getting them shipped out to all of our locations and facilities. But I think, as far as keeping people safe, I would say that, all of those mitigation efforts that we took early on, immediately sending people home to work fully remote. We shut down all of our offices, across all 3 states. All of our administrative offices were shut down immediately, and we just kind of tried to figure it out on the go. And those early mitigation efforts, I think, played a big factor in our overall success. And we maintained a COVID-free work environment throughout the construction season in 2020. And I look back and I often thought about it, like, how did we do that? And where community spread might not have been as significant of an issue as it is now, when people are, we're reopening things and stuff. But those crews work closely together, and so that was an eye opener for me. Like, how did we do that? And it really was not without the efforts of an entire team. Yeah, I mean, fully remote for all of our admin employees, including in our headquarters office in New Hampshire. I think there were 2 people out of 50 in the entire building, and that was just payroll related functionality. So fully remote, lots of disinfectant, and lots of, it was similar to what Ben was mentioning earlier. It was a constant conversation piece. And then the contract tracing, if we had any employee, some people on the call might probably were part of the AGC plan to, re-enter the workforce, and that whole rubrics on, if you have a fever, here's what you do, right? Here's how long you're out of work for. Here's what you do if you have to, do you have to get a test? Yes, no. So we followed those things to a T quite honestly. And that was 95% of my job for a very long time. It was very interesting. But, you know, we had people that went out drinking the night before, called in sick, said they were vomiting. And it's like, well, that's a COVID symptom. And I'm sorry, but now you're out for 72 hours. So I learned some things I didn't necessarily need to know about employees, but it was, you know, I think all of it just came together successfully. So.
Yeah, it sounds like you should be proud of yourselves for, you know, being COVID free too, for sure, because that's not an easy feat. Do you, and I know, do you know if, and this actually is a question for any of you, but it sort of stands to reason that when this all first started and you had to be, you know, getting all your safety supplies, your cleaning supplies, how, like, did all of this slow down the crews? I mean, especially at the beginning when it all started?
Yeah, so I mean, I think for us, we were a couple weeks behind because of the slow restart, if you will, right? You know, so I think we were a couple weeks delayed in getting traffic design, you know. So I would say initially it did, and certainly the extra burden on the field managers was significant. And there's just no denying that fact. And they really had a lot on their plate, you know, with the visitor logs and the sanitation logs of porterlets and that type of stuff. So they, I would say it added a couple extra hours to their day. Do I feel like it slowed down our season overall? I don't think so. You know, I think we probably made up for it with really good weather last year that we had during the season.
Great, thank you. Ben, is there anything you want to add on that? Oh,
So, sorry about that. I had to unmute. Yeah. Just like was just described. I mean, we got on the bus early. We educated ourselves about all the protocols. We took a crash course in Emergency Family Medical Leave Act and the EFMLA. We sorted that all out and figured out and made our own little cheat sheet so that if someone was out or a doctor put them out for a reason, we were able to pay them and then recover through tax credits for the amount that we paid them, which we were able to do quarterly. That was a huge effort that we did. The other part of that is having our own little small COVID committee that we had of five managers who 24/7 we would get on the phone. It might be 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning or whatever, when someone had a possible exposure, and just to slow down the process and to keep people out. I told them, when in doubt, if it's 5 o'clock in the morning and they're asking if they should come to work because they did it, keep them out of work, and then we'll deal with it. You got to have a little bit of time to process and follow the protocols that you need to. And the last thing we did was we immediately partnered with Champlain Medical Urgent Care, who also became available 24/7 to help us with questions and information that they received, because we found that they received information from the Department of Health sometimes before we did and before it became official. So we relied on them heavily during the COVID stuff. And then on top of that, all the supplies and incorporating all the COVID supplies into our tool crib, arming up the safety department with masks and our own sanitizer that we manufactured ourselves by getting all the ingredients and buying all the sprayers, and then turning up the frequency of visits to the job site and adding the COVID stuff to the PPE, making the COVID also part of the daily hazard assessment. None of our jobs run without a daily hazard assessment during the beginning of the day and anytime anything changes that's significant. So incorporating all of those things every day into the daily hazard assessment and actually putting it into the paperwork that the guys all get on their tablet and they're going down through, oh, any traffic issues and traffic control and COVID protocols. It's right on their device. The other thing we did is we created links to the latest COVID orders that the governor put out and kind of managed them down. So people had access to the actual documents every time they had an amendment or a change right from their mobile device if they wanted to look it up themselves. But I think they found it easier to follow our own interpretation. And then the final thing I'll say is we did team up with the AGC Vermont team, and we ended up adopting their COVID protocols as we helped them develop them. So
Great.
That's how everybody kept safe, right?
Thank you. And it's not an easy feat because it seems like it was a daily, things changed on a daily, if not hourly basis. And for you guys to keep up, it's definitely tough. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and ask about EEO officer presence on the job site. I know that we've talked a lot about that today in the Mentimeter and stuff, but I'm curious in terms of, and I'll start with you, Suzanne, how Kubricki makes known who the EEO officer, and I think there's sort of layers there going on, but how, and I know, and I'm also aware that there was a pandemic this year. So this question may not be ideal for this year because it may not have been happening as much, but I'm sort of curious, even in previous years, if there was a way of making it known, who the EEO officer is, or helping, to get the word to the crews and that kind of thing.
Well, this last year, because of COVID, I didn't go out. But earlier years, I have gone out on the job site and did a 5-minute huddle. When people are hired, they go through our training and sign off on who their EEO officer is. And then also the employees have their own sign off each year to reaffirm that. And it's posted at the job sites who their EEO officer is. There's training with the supervisory personnel that we hold each year at the beginning of the season and then later on in the season. There's a yearly spring kickoff meeting that we review the EEO officer. And then for each job site, before the construction begins, I have a EEO officer. We go over the goals of the project and what the required wording in the contract, etc., is regarding EEO. So we go over it quite a few times for each project.
Yeah, it does sound like that. And I remember the days not that long ago where I would be out doing OJT stuff and you would be there too. So I know you were making the rounds and coming over for pre-construction meetings and all of that. So hopefully, we'll get there again, but I do understand, being safe. So so I'm going to throw that question out to you, Jenny, in terms of, making a presence and again, I know I've seen you out and about, and this year probably was different for you, but can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. So this year, 2020 was different, as will 2021 be, but hopefully a little bit more back to the norm or what we were used to. So when we went fully remote was before the construction season kicked off, and then we kicked off, and really we limited all visitors at our job sites, and that included me as the EEO liaison. And so it was essential people only on projects. So we had to figure out a different way to connect, right? So I was connecting with those frontline project managers, you know, on at least a monthly basis, if not, you know, weekly. And certainly, so the essential piece came in, you know, if there was an issue. So basically last year, 2020 really only saw us on site for essential reasons, whether that was onboarding a new hire and doing the essential training, or dealing with essential issues that came up. So hopefully 2021 will be a little different, and we can, because that's really part of my job that I do enjoy, is getting out in the field, and certainly missed that over the last year. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we'll get back out there. And how about you, Ben? Do you get out and about?
Yes. And the other thing that is helpful to me is that I'm the operations manager, and everyone in the company is accountable to me. So I'm the head coach, and I'm the one that whenever someone has a problem that they can't solve, it usually comes up to me. So being the operations manager, it's a big responsibility, but it also helps me as EEO, because even people, my goal is that if people don't even know what who the EEO is by some chance, that they think, you know what, it must be Mr. Dow, because he's the one that always comes out of the woodwork whenever we have a problem or an issue, especially when it's related to any of this stuff. So if it isn't him, I don't know who it is. So you have to make it kind of the obvious. It's hard. We had an HR person for a while, and she ended up leaving for a better job, higher paying somewhere. And one of the things that we realized was she knew all the stuff really well, and the people had a hard time kind of relating. Just because she was the HR person. It's like, oh no, I got to go talk to the HR person. And so I maintained being the EEO officer throughout that. And I think that if you don't make it a part of your culture and you don't make it obvious, it's hard to go to the job and say, I'm here as the EEO officer. I'm here as the person that's upholding our standards and how we treat each other. And luckily, I work for a company that has some native Vermonters that agree with how people should be treated. And that just so happens to mostly align with the laws and the rules. The biggest thing I've been fighting with lately with a couple of people is just realizing, and a lot of people are, you know, this racism stuff. It's like, what is racism? What is discrimination? It's like, well, you got to erase from your mind all those things that make you think people are different, because they aren't. Everyone, we're all different. And making that, for me, being the EEO officer, it's a lot easier for me because I am the most influential person that I know, because that's my job, is to be the most influential and to drive it down. So if you have an EEO officer that's not that influential person by their position, then they have to make up for it with more visits and engagement with people to get to know them. I know everybody on a different basis. So that just makes it easier for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, you did. And plus, you've been there a long time. You've been with the company a long time. So I think we kind of need to wrap this up. And I know this, I just wanted to ask Suzanne and Jenny if they had any. I'm moving on to the technology, and Ben, you spoke well to this. about what ECI has in place and is doing. I wondered if Suzanne or Jenny, if you have any apps that you use with your employees or any kind of technology, especially now that, the pandemic hit, that has worked well for you?
The only thing that I can think of is we have instituted a weekly meeting via telephone. And so they can log everybody up that's on the phone call, and they go over safety, and they go over anything that's happening in the fields and stuff like that. And that's the only thing that I can think of, other than we have started using DocuSign on some of our policies and procedures as well.
Okay, yep, thank you. Jenny, anything?
We really, I feel like, have used the whole scheme of it, right? We went from Teams is something that our president is passionate about. So we were kind of kicking off this Teams thing before COVID hit, which we were thankful for when COVID did hit, but found some limitations to it, right, on numbers of people and attendance and all of that, and length of meeting early on in Teams. Teams has developed certainly a lot throughout the last year, and has new functionality that supports some of these larger audiences that we needed to get in front of. But we ended up on Zoom for our intern group kickoff and end of season celebration virtually. So that was a first for us on Zoom. I had never had a Zoom account before, so that was new for me. One thing we did use instead of DocuSign, like a lot of you have spoken about, we use Jot forms, which is, create your own acknowledgement form, if you will. And you basically can email out a link. It sends it back to the originator as a PDF. So that was something that came in very handy with regards to our mandatory trainings and signature acknowledgements. But beyond that, the standard Teams, Zoom.
Thank you. Yeah, we moved pretty quickly into Teams as well on our end. So I don't know, I don't see anything in the chat, but I don't know if I can see raised hands, and I didn't know if there were any questions that anybody else had out there. I didn't want to just take over this.
I don't see any raised hands, Sue.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Well, I really appreciate all of you, Ben and Suzanne and Jenny, for sharing your time, sharing your expertise, and letting us, ask you all these questions. Again, thanks for doing this, and all of you have done it now 2 years in a row, so we really do appreciate it. But and I think we're gonna move into a group discussion. And it's time for, I don't know what's going on. Okay.
Sorry, this is from our original time that we kind of got off a little bit. So sorry, that slide was out of place.
It's fine. I just got confused. So I'm going to put myself on mute now.
So, and Sonia, if you want to lead the way with the group discussion, we had originally envisioned this as possibly breakout topics, because in the past we've included some breakout groups with some of our in-person training and given folks a chance to network that way. We tried doing that on at our Friday session last Friday, where we had more than twice the number of people that we have today. And I think that because different people have different communication devices associated with their computers and stuff, it was a little bit hard in the breakout sessions. Some people don't have microphones at all. Some people were calling in by phone. So instead of doing a breakout, we thought that we would benefit from opening this up to the entire group, I guess. And these were some of the questions that we had come up with that we thought would be helpful to talk about as a group and find out what people are doing out there, what their challenges are, what their strategies are, best practices, etc. So take it away, Sonia, unless I already took it away.
Yeah, you did, but that's okay. I couldn't have said it any better.
Thank you, Sonia. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No worries, no worries. So we are going to get started, and so you'll see on the screen that there's some questions listed that we were, going to toss out there for folks to answer. Again, as Lori said, if you can't, or I think she said, if you can't use your microphone, please use the chat pod to type in your questions. We are going to be monitoring it, so and we'll try to get those answers to you. And if we can't today, we will get back to you at a later time. Before we get moving on this, the evaluation was put in the chat pod earlier. I will put it in there again, so you all can see it. And we value your input. So please take a moment to fill that out if you have a chance. So recruitment, retention, diversity strategies. Did you have challenges specific to COVID with respect to recruiting in 2020? If so, what were they, and how do you plan to address it in 2021? I know we're talking a lot about COVID, but it is in the forefront right now. So does anybody have anything that they would like to share about their strategies?
Don't make us bring back the Mentimeter quiz.
Okay, Ben, do you have?
Let's get his hand up.
I wanted to see if that worked. I got to put it down now. I don't know how to put it down. Okay.
Good job.
So for like recruiting, we started, it was kind of interesting, but we ended up using Zoom, I think, a lot in the beginning last year, because it was hard for a lot of people to use Teams, but we actually ended up having some people that lived really far away that we would have normally had come to the office, and then usually when they come to the office, the one person that you want them to talk to is not there, right? So one of the things that works pretty well is when we're able to engage with them, like over a Zoom meeting or even over Teams. And then it turns out that a lot of the younger people actually that we're looking to get actually are pretty savvy when it comes to like a FaceTime kind of a like a little bit of an interview. So I think that we'd never done that before, and we started doing it, and we actually hired a lot of people during COVID. We probably hired more people during COVID than we ever hired in the last 5 years, and it was all virtual. And the other thing, I think someone mentioned like the DocuSign stuff, and we used DocuSign, and then we switched over to SignEasy because the DocuSign started really getting more expensive because we were using it so much. But like all the handbook and the information to get to them for recruiting, that's all done virtual now. They can fill it out. They can get their paperwork back if they need to. The other thing we started was we got this thing called Jazz HR, which it funnels all of we want to post an ad, we just post it to Jazz HR, and it pushes it out to all the different places that we want. It goes to the boards, to Indeed, to our website, and then all the appropriate people get notified that we have a job out there, and then they can fill out the job application on the computer now, and then it comes back to us through Jazz HR. So right now we have like 5 people doing recruiting, and they're just monitoring the dashboard on this Jazz HR thing. It's an odd name, but it works. And when you get a new candidate, you get alerted, and then you can email them, and you can move them through a process of someone calling them, And we'd never done anything like that before. And we're actually doing it right now. It works pretty good. What used to happen is someone answers an ad and then they never get a call. And that, when you're looking for a job and nobody answers, you're pretty much in trouble right there. You know, you call them a month later and say, hey, you applied for our job a month and a half ago. Are you still interested? No, they already got a job somewhere else. So that's the other part of it, is we set up this Jazz HR thing to send them an email right away saying, we received your application and we will review it and we will get back to you if it's we set it up so that we will get back to them if we're interested. Otherwise, they might not hear from us, but that's okay because we did get their application. I don't remember the exact wording, but yeah. Okay.
Lori, you have a question?
Yeah, it's kind of a follow-up question for Ben. It sounds like, Ben, ECI was successful moving into the virtual space really almost seamlessly and quickly, like a lot of groups, for the recruitment part and even the interviewing and hiring part. What about for onboarding? Are you doing any of that virtually, or is that still an in-person function?
So I was just checking to make sure I was not muted. Yeah, so the onboarding right now, we've moved a little bit more back to what we were doing, which is by the time they're on board, they actually come in to do the final paperwork. But OSHA 10, OSHA 30, anti-harassment training, everyone that comes to work for us, whether they work on a VTrans job, has to go through the 4 sessions of the VTrans training. We got an account with, it's called YouTube. It's a YouTube account. So a lot of our standard training, we have a link to it. So our people can either do YouTube or they can do our training online. And a lot of times by the time we see that employee, they have already done all the safety training that we require. We used to do it all in person in front of like a projector. Now they do it virtually, and that's a little bit of a challenge. But the final paperwork, we were doing that all on DocuSign. But we find that when they're coming into work on that last day, it's a lot easier to get that final stuff. Make sure that they bring everything and get them onboarded in person for that 20 minutes or 30 minutes it takes to make sure all the paperwork's in.
That sounds great. It sounds like you've built a really great model for getting through COVID in particular. I'm curious if you have an idea of what you think is going to be retained post-COVID, because some of these are not just to get through the pandemic, but they've created efficiencies for you, right? So post-COVID, are you going to keep some of those practices?
I think we're going to keep most all of it. I think the cool thing that we're looking forward to, if we get to the post-COVID when we can take the mask requirement off of the employees, might be something that changes. But other than that, I think a lot of this stuff were changed. We went through a struggle, and just like I said before, if you embrace this tough time that we went through, you can really come out of it ahead of the game if you just work through it. I don't see us changing a lot. I think actually right now we're seeing a lot of developments, like someone said, with teams, and there is a whole slew of things that you can get with teams. Somebody mentioned one of the apps, but we're learning all the form apps and all the other little things that come with it. There's like 30 different things that can be incorporated with Microsoft that we're actually doing now, which is we're just starting. It's so COVID, we're going to get rid of the masks hopefully, but that's about it.
That's great, Ben. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And Lori, I was going to ask the same exact question. So I'm curious about other contractors, and if there's anybody else who wants to share what their process is for recruitment during COVID. Anybody else want to add or share their how they're doing things?
I feel like it's Jenny from Pike Industries. I'll certainly share if you guys haven't heard enough from me already. But we actually just implemented a fully electronic onboarding system. It's called Click, and it ties in with our applicant track system as well as our payroll system. So fingers crossed that everything talks to each other correctly. But that obviously was not done at the local level. It was done at our CRH parent company. So, and rolled out across all 50 states. But so we now have a fully electronic onboarding system. So the only thing that, we have to physically do on day one is their I-9, and even that's electronic. So they go in and fill out a portion of their form. We contracted with a new I-9 vendor for that purpose, and all of our ADP criminal background checks, that's all done through an electronic link that goes directly to the candidate. They go in on their smartphone and fill out their information. And so that's all electronic. We are still, like Ben mentioned, doing those kind of on-site day one, make sure all your paperwork is there, so payroll doesn't have our heads. So, but we are doing those virtual, and by doing them virtual, it allows us to onboard, quicker. And we used to do them once a week, and so every HR person in each state did once a week, and we'd have 5 or 10 new hires every week, right? But in this case, the manager is getting them in the field as quickly as possible, and we do a 30 to 60 minute orientation, and then they are immediately introduced to all the safety aspects in the field, and their manager takes them from the minute they walk through the door, versus before they would start with HR for 2 hours, and the connection is not there. They're not working for me in HR, they're working for their field manager. So so we found that to be very successful. So again, it's all virtual.
That's awesome. Do you think that you'll retain that system after COVID goes away?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because of the flexibility that it's allowed us, because geographically we're so dispersed, and our HR team does that onboarding. We don't put that on our field managers. So, and they're very appreciative of that. So, so we'll still maintain that in HR, and it just saves us significant travel time and allows us a lot more flexibility to do them. If we get drug test back at 4 o'clock this afternoon, I can onboard an employee tomorrow morning.
That's great. Does any of our smaller contractors, I know that Pike and ECI, or Pike especially, is a little bit larger. Does any of our smaller contractors want to chime in on this topic? Okay. Oh, someone typed a message. No? Okay, I'm seeing things.
Lori had her hand up, I think.
Did you, Lori? I'm sorry. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. At least once a training, right? Whether I need to or not. So I guess I'm sort of curious and throw it out to the whole group. We know from all of the data that the pandemic has hit women in the workforce much harder in many industries because they have either lost their jobs or they've had to stay home to provide childcare, homeschooling, you name it. And so I'm wondering whether for some of our contractors who've been trying to go the extra mile to recruit and hire more diversity into your workforce, women and people of color, whether your efforts have been impacted by the pandemic. How do you see that going? And do you see that changing at all in 2021? Whether there were any particular challenges because of the pandemic to recruit, hire, or retain diversity in your workforce? Any thoughts about it? Okay, well, so I will say that, you know, we take a snapshot of our contractor workforce during the month of July, which is presumed to be the peak of the construction season in Vermont. And the numbers actually look pretty good for both women and people of color that were being reported as working in Vermont during last July. We didn't seem to lose ground. I didn't know, though, if any of you had encountered more difficulty in your recruitment efforts. That's all.
Yeah, Lori, I can answer kind of quickly. Overall, I would say retention was really good for us last year. And I think that was partially because of the pandemic and people were uncertain and just staying put, right, overall. So I would say we saw great trends on the retention side of the house. But with that in mind, you talk about women in construction and women in the workforce. And I did have an employee that just said to me, you know, she exhausted all of her leave options. Then you talked about the EFMLA and all of that stuff that we had to go through and figure out. And, you know, we had 2 employees that unfortunately exhausted all of their leave options. And you know, we offered them extended opportunities. You know, obviously they were unpaid, but for them, they needed some income. They still needed income, but had 3 kids at home that they needed to teach. And so they chose to resign. Unfortunately, obviously, we have some kind of internal processes that allow employees to retain seniority if they return, that we offered to those employees that were, you know, had to make those choices for their families. It was really unfortunate. But I would say overall retention was really good in our realm, but we did lose a couple of key members of our team because of the struggles of pandemic and school-age children.
Yeah, hopefully 2021 will be a little kinder overall, and we'll see a lot more people getting back to work across the board. So I think that Sarah has her hand up, though.
Yep. I just wanted to chime in. We also had a good female retention last year. We actually, I think, hired 1 more. There's not a lot of females in the construction business, more in the office, but you know, not out in the field, and we were able to hire a couple. And so that worked out well for us. We did have, you know, some of the office people who has school-age children. So she would work from home 3 days, and then on the 4th day come in for a day and do what she needed to do in the office while her husband stayed home with the child. And then she was home, you know, the last day. So we all banded together as a great company that we are, and really worked to make sure that, you know, everybody got paid, the bills got paid, the money came in, got to the bank, and we survived it. And it was a good year in that aspect for us.
That's great. It does take a village.
I mean,
sorry, Sonia.
No, Lori, it's okay. We just think alike. Yes, no, that is great. That's awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing. Does anybody else want to share before I move on to the next question? All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because this is something that I kind of feel a little bit passionate about. And actually, it's been on the forefront of all in CR and on minds for the last summer or last season. When it comes to collecting and keeping track of subcontractor payrolls, what is your procedure for getting word from the field to the office to confirm which subs are on site and when? Do you have a best practice you could share? That's what we really would like to hear. If anybody has any systems in place to keep track of the subs on site and when payroll is due. Jennifer.
Hi, this is mine, so I know something about this.
Yay!
We actually are using B2W software, which I know other people out there are probably using as well. But it actually keeps track of subs for us as long as they're putting them in the field. So as long as we're doing our job and training our foremen and superintendents to put them in, then it comes right back to me and I get all that information. And I know I have to reach out if I'm not seeing that certified payroll from the subcontractor.
That sounds awesome. Great. It is. So how long has Casella been using that, Jennifer?
We started when we were in Brandon. So gosh, I guess it's been almost 3.5 years. So wow. Yeah, I mean, we've improved with it as we've gone, that kind of thing. But we really have it down to a science for the most part right now. And it's just been a huge help. It's no more, you know, an invoice comes in and I'm going, they were on site? You didn't know. So that's actually been huge.
That sounds great. And it sounds like it really helps connect the dots in a very timely way, which is that big disconnect that we sometimes have. So what's the name of it again?
It's called B2, the number W.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
What about anybody else? Anybody else have any systems that they're? No, Ben, you're Sarah. Sarah is going to speak up for ECI. You're on mute. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, we have this. This is a problem for us because sometimes I'll get a lovely email from Sonia saying, "Hey, what about this sub-certified payroll?" And for the most part, I get them all, but there's a few stragglers. And then when I request it, it's like pulling teeth. And other than the B2W, is there any other way to find out who's on site? I would love to hear it.
It looks
Judy
like
D.
Judy has
something to say.
Hi. I'm
Hi.
not sure if this is an approved way for you folks, but I look at the biweekly pay estimates and scan down through the items that have quantities being paid, and that's my double check of what subs are on the job site.
So that makes sense, and it's kind of belt and suspenders. But of course, depending on when it hits, it may or may not be
Right.
giving you a timely heads up that you should be looking for a payroll from a certain sub. I know that Sue has been working with the folks out on one of our projects on a pilot, and it does require that we get help from our resident engineer and inspectors. But Sue, do you want to describe a little bit about what that looks like?
Sure. Yeah, we implemented because we too, as Sonia said, our office struggles with this too, and so on one of our projects that's going through up in North Hero, that's going through the winter, we decided to do a little pilot, and it's really just you know, it's a spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet. And it at least gives us, you know, they'll upload it to Doc Express weekly, so I can see it every week. I can see who was on site when, and so And so that way, you know, I know sort of a couple things. So I know, you know, who should be getting let's back up. The prime, who Chinbro should be saying that they paid for, you know, the work that's been approved by the subs. It's not, it's fairly new, and I think there's a few kinks, but it's and it's relying, as Lori said, it's relying on the resident engineer or an inspector to actually fill it in and upload it. But they've been doing well with it, and it just requires a little bit of, you know, it is manual, but I think it's going to be, it's miles ahead of of just trying to figure it out, or, you know, like not knowing when. Like I said, it's a spreadsheet, so that might be something that you guys might want to consider. It's a way of communicating that information from the field to us, and I can see it every week. So it's helpful.
It's a good point, Sue.
Yeah, but it's also going to communicate it to the primes as well. So I was thinking if it gets uploaded into Doc Express, it can notify the prime contractor as well, to be looking out for those payrolls too, right?
That's true. I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be a good solution.
It could, or the contractor could work with their field staff on developing a system similar to that, to try to keep track of, you know, the approved subcontracts, what week they've been there, and then that way it might give you all some kind of system for keeping track, so you have some idea of who's there. So, does anybody else have anything to add? But Ben Dow. And I said your name right.
You did. I had a question for, we actually use B2W for our estimating, but we use another product called Foundation for our accounting. The person that had the B2W, are you guys using a field app to report that stuff?
Yeah, we are. We use B2W Estimate for jobs, estimating jobs, but we actually bought into the entire system.
Right.
So we're implementing it across the board. Track is what we use out in the field, and it's field logs. The foreman and superintendents are actually filling them out daily.
Yeah, we have that function in Foundation, and I sent Sarah an email because we may be able to, they're competitors, and we may be able to do that. So that field tracking, we don't use the field tracking very much, but we do have that component possibly available to us. So thank you. That was good information.
Yeah.
That's great. We made a connection. I hope it works out. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything they want to offer on this subject? I know that I'm kind of trying to keep track of the time. We have 10 minutes left, and I want to give some time for wrapping up and you know, closing out for the day. So should we do one more question, team, or do you think, yeah, one more question? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna not talk about COVID. So how do you let your employees and subcontractor employees know where the poster board, where on the project the poster boards are located? Whose responsibility is it, and how do you ensure it's being done on a regular basis? Anybody want to add to that? Ben, I think you're reaching for the unmute button. There's Ben. He likes to raise his hand. Thank you, Ben.
It works good. One thing that we've been trying to do is that most of our jobs have a key core, a core crew. And so what we found is before the job starts, we actually have the core crew set up the job poster board themselves, the entire crew, so they all know what it is, what it's about, and our health and safety director works with them. Because when we used to rely on the safety department or another group to put the posters up. No one ever knew where it was. So we try to get the key people up to speed on what they know what it is. They have fun building it. You know, they go and buy the most expensive plywood and the most expensive pressure treated 2x4s. And it seems like they have to build one every time, but we let them do it
done.
because they know what it is.
Yep,
and then
it's important.
It is. And because we've had some hiccups where, you know, where we had those mobile jobs and we would leave it we'd have it at the shop because they had a mobile job and then they got another mobile job and then there was confusion about where it was. So we've been through all that, but having the key group of people that are responsible for the job, not being served with someone delivering this poster board that they're never going to look at. We actually let them spend a few hours themselves before they do their special work is to install that thing themselves. And I think that helps. The other thing we do is it's on the checklist for the health and safety and the safety team whenever they visit to have that on their checklist to go find it and make sure it's still there. And they have the laminated things right in their truck. So if something gets ripped down, they can put it right back up.
That's awesome, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lori has a question. Sue has a question. I don't know. Who wants to go first?
Sue may have had her hand up first. I was just going to do the infomercial for contract admin and the CMS.
Go ahead, Sue.
I forgot about that. I just have a quick follow-up for Ben. So, do I have to put my hand down here? Okay. So this is great that they create the board, they put it up, but who takes responsibility for letting subcontractors know where it is? Because that's the bigger issue. I feel like that's the bigger issue. Usually the prime, the employees know and all of that, but what about your subs? Like, whose responsibility is it?
We try to have the superintendent do it because he's the one that's engaging with the subs, the superintendent of the job. And sometimes the delivery is, yep, here's the board. You got to know where it is. You can read all the, you know, how the field guys are. But that's one of the things that we have on our checklist on the with the pre-construction meeting that we have in-house. We always have either several of our foremen and the superintendent involved on the job, and we have them put that on their checklist that when you have subs, that's one of your responsibilities. We try really hard, but I don't know if it gets. I think we can improve. Just so you know.
Well, we're all about continuous improvement, and it sounds like lots of folks are doing lots of things, and you know, Ben said it best earlier. This whole last year has forced lots of us to embrace change rather rapidly, but there's some good stuff that's come out of it, and can't thank all of you enough for coming in and sharing what you're doing in response to these challenging times and coming up with some really innovative ways of being resilient and making the most of the situation. So that's wonderful. So speaking of continuous improvement, we told our folks who in our contract administration and construction that we would do a 30-second infomercial since we had a lot of contractors attending. They want to make sure that you know, as part of the agency's multi-year efforts to set up a new construction management system, since we're replacing our legacy system that we've used for the last 25 years, the contract administration portion is ready to roll. And so beginning in March, which I guess is next week, they'll be offering training to all of the contractors that use the bidding system. The new system is going to go live starting, I believe, in April. Is that accurate, Sonia? She's nodding, so it must be right. And so if you go to the contract admin website, you'll be able to get more information about this. I believe that the new system is going to be pretty user-friendly, but you might want to give your folks who are responsible for putting together your bid packages and the like heads up that this new system is coming. And we will include a link to information about this when we send out our follow-up email. Hopefully that'll get out to all of you either later this week or next week. We'll include a bunch of links to lots of the different resources we've been talking about, and we'll include something to this as well. And I know that Sonia has now pasted into the chat pod a couple times the evaluation form, and I would love to encourage all of you to fill it out. This is our first time doing this virtually. You've all been wonderful, very engaged, such a wonderful sharing of ideas and information. We really appreciate it. You all rocked the Mentimeter quiz, which was great to see. And we would love your feedback so that in the event we continue to do these in a virtual way, that we'll be able to only improve. So other thoughts before we say goodbye? Sue, Sonia, Karen, anyone?
I just want to say thanks to everybody for being here and like you said, being engaged and sharing, because it's very important stuff. So thank you.
Yes, I second that. Thank you all for coming. I think maybe you said this, Lori, but there is going to be training for the contractors on the new CMS system. So when you check out Contract Admin's website, if you aren't already aware, I believe there's information there as well. So yeah, thank you all. Does anybody else have any questions before we say goodbye?
I just wanted to say thank you all too, and it's so good to see faces and actually put faces to some names that I write to all the time. Very nice to see everybody again.
Agreed, and thank you, Larkin, and to Matt as well, even though Matt had to go, for Federal Highway, for all your support throughout the year and for coming today as well. We really, really do appreciate it.
Anytime, Avi.
Thank you.
Okay,
all right, bye,
if there's nothing else, we'll let you all go and fill out your evaluations. Thank you all so much, and stay safe out there.
Yes.